Did I make a difference? Was I here for my life? Was I here? Or was I living my life for others? Was I actually here, right? Experiencing it, being with life itself in the moment. Trusting love, trusting source, knowing in your heart and soul that the universe is friendly. And it is, I think Neville would say that, conspiring for your highest good, right? In every moment. That we can lean into life and let life have us. Let ourselves be life experiencing and expressing itself. And the Mayans would say, let go of the shore of the known. Right? Allow yourself to make love to the mystery, to say yes to the mystery, to allow the mystery to just surrender into that flow and to know that it's for our absolute highest good. And we can trust that 100%. It's got our back. And let it inform our life. Let it show us what's possible.
Welcome to the James Xander Trip. My guest today, returning for the second time to the podcast, is Paul Scott. Paul Scott is a quantum touch instructor, an energy healing facilitator, a plant medicine explorer, and a spiritual seeker. Through his counseling practice, he has worked with hundreds of people one-on-one and has impacted thousands of lives through the workshops and teachings that he facilitates. I had the pleasure of interviewing Paul in episode number 3 of the James Xander Trip, which I highly recommend you take the time to listen to. We dove into his experiences with mushrooms, ayahuasca, Bufo, his study of A Course in Miracles, his spiritual journey, lessons from his marriage, and so much more. Today, I wanted to bring him back on the show to dive into what is most alive for him right now, in this moment, and see where the conversation takes us. Paul Scott, welcome to the James Xander Trip.
Hi, James. Good to see you again. This is great. Yeah.
So great to see you. And it's such an honor to be able to sit down with you in person and dive into spirituality, God, psychedelics, and personal growth.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
I think a great first question to start off with is, what do you think we're all doing on this planet, actually?
Big question, hey? I think we're here to remember who we are in our full potential, to be as conscious here as we can be in that knowledge, you know? One of my great teachers and inspirations is Christ, you know, as the Christ message in Course in Miracles. Great master. And I think he summed it up beautifully when he said, I came that you might have life in all its fullness and abundance. Right? And the kingdom is within. The kingdom is within, and the kingdom is here now. So you can connect to that abundant flow of life and the divinity of love that we are here now in the human experience. So I would say to just fully be in the human experience, right? To be life in all its abundance as who we truly are here on a soul level of our gifts and essence and abilities and talents in service to the collective field, you know, the collective humanity. And so just to be here fully in that in service to the awakening, the great awakening. Yeah.
Beautiful. For someone who is listening and maybe they don't know what their gifts are or what their purpose is or how they can be of service, what is the most direct way for them to find out?
Yeah. It is a big one, isn't it? Because you always hear, just be yourself. You know, what does that mean to be yourself? That's such a big deal to, I really see it as letting go of everything we're not, that we've been enculturated and conditioned into and taught to become who we actually are, which is quite a journey to just be who we truly are here. And I think once we tap into our more internal nature, it becomes almost self-evident as to what brings us joy, what brings me into this moment, what opens my heart to allow me to connect and be connected to and love, and so it's really a journey of self-exploration, letting go of everything we think we are to discover who we truly are here. So that would be kind of the process. Yeah.
How did you discover who you truly are and what your gifts were in this life?
Oh. Well, when I look back on it, right, and we all reflect, I think we all know who we are when we first come in here as children. We're so natural, right? I was raised in England from around 4 till 8, somewhere around that 7 years old. So it was really an instrumental time for me before I'd even got to school. And we lived beside this, what would you call it? It was a natural spring where they filled up the steam engines, trains from. And once that was outdated, it just became a forest around this pool. It was sort of just my own little world there. When I was young, I just hung around that environment. And I remember just being one, not really doing anything, but just kind of being with nature, feeling the divine or the God in everything, feeling this amazing kind of joy and connection and playfulness and wonder. And yeah, that was the space. And then life started happening, through obviously relationships and things that started to happen, and then things changed. So I think it's almost like we all start out having an innate sort of sense of ourselves, and then we slowly get conditioned into and enculturated into how we're supposed to be here. And it's a learned thing. And we think, well, okay, I'm supposed to learn to be somebody here. Right. And then it starts. And it's almost like our journey then becomes to unlearn everything we have learned, to come back to that state of innocence and wonder that we always have been and already are right now. Yeah.
Do you think that's the way it was always divinely orchestrated, that we would, through conditioning, forget who we are and then have to come back and relearn who we truly are?
Seems to be the way, isn't it? To come here into forgetfulness. It's almost like the density here is so dense. Apparently, this is one of the densest places in the universe, frequency-wise. So coming into this kind of density just wipes the memory out, and we go into this state of forgetfulness of who we are. And yeah, we're at our deepest level trying to remember and come home, come back to the deeper truth that, that we all know we are. So it seems like all of us are on this journey of remembering, coming back to the highest, sort of sense of who we really truly are here. Yeah, it's quite the game. It's quite the journey.
It's an incredible game. And I'm curious, for you, what is your best understanding of what God truly is? And how do we nurture that connection with the divine?
I think if we get really still, and just allow ourselves to really come into the moment and just be here as deeply as we possibly can, we start to feel the presence of God or our true self or the life force that is in everything, in the whole field that permeates everything, for sure. I think last time when we talked, because when I was younger, I was really into yogic practices and meditation, and I did a lot of, I think for me, what we had talked about doing LSD when I was younger, like really, that really was wild because it showed me the essence of who and what I am and everything is without any boundaries. Like once I was in that unity kind of consciousness, it was just a felt presence of God, of the love, of like, God is love. For me, God is love. God is what we are. We are that. We are that love, all of us, right? So it gave me that connection, like, oh my God, yeah, we are all one, really, truly. We're all expressions of the divine, right? And the essence of the divine here.
What do you think is the cosmic purpose of psychedelics like LSD and mushrooms and Bufo? Is it to reconnect us to God? Is there other purposes built into that technology?
Yeah, I think they're all teachers, right? All medicines are teachers. They all have their own beautiful path, and you're called to some and others maybe not so much too, but yeah, for me, they're the teachers, just like the animal totems and the archetypal energies. They're beautiful, powerful teachers, and this is kind of an interesting thing I can kind of throw in there. When I was doing the DMT MU5 experience, I had a sense of coming here with a pod, like a soul pod, of light seeds. And we were all coming here to be here. And it was fun. It was really quite interesting because it was like I could feel us vibrating coming into this place of going, oh my God, we're going to be stuck into an atom, right? We're these infinite beings of light, consciousness, and we're going to be stuffed into these atoms. And we're going to forget. We're going to forget who we are. And we're going to have to remember, And what I did see with the early coming into this place was beings that were here, druids, Wiccans, different kinds of beings who were very connected to the earth and Gaia and the animals and the plant kingdoms. They recognized kind of who we were coming in, and they taught us how to be here, to inhabit a body in this place, through medicines, through the animals, through the plants. So that was just a thing I saw when I was on one of the journeys. I thought, wow. So to me, these same teachers are now here again, as I'm opening and others are opening to bring us back to remembrance, to like, okay, we've gone deep into forgetfulness now. We're coming home. We're coming into remembering who we are. So they're the guides both in and out for me.
In what way has Bufo been a teacher to you, and what were the lessons that you learned from Bufo?
Well, they call it the death medicine for a reason, right? Yeah, the first time for me was apparently the chemicals that through light and sound that keep all this going for us in 3D, right? They're totally that interference pattern with our true reality is just gone, right? It's just gone. And for me, it was like, oh my God, I remember who I am now. I remember who we all are. And I just felt like I was home in the heart of God, and I was with God, and it was just the most amazing experience. And for me, it came a little bit later in my life, so I'd done a lot of other medicines and journeying and different things. So for me, it was like when I came back into the body, it was such an incredible experience of feeling like, wow, I have come on this long journey and I'm here now, and it was this frequency or this vibration that I really like wasn't expecting, but at the same time with thrilled, but it was so much for the my psyche, for breathing the amount of frequency and energy that was coming through the ecstasy of the experience, and the psyche of, wow, coming to, like, wow, we've gone through a long journey to get here, and I'm here now. So it was a wild experience of being here now in a more full awareness of my truer nature. That was the start of something very, very powerful.
When I did Bufo earlier this year, it felt to me like going to the center of the universe, the center of God, and just being one with everything. And feeling this intense peace about everything, knowing that every single thing was okay. None of my 3D human problems were real in a sense. They were all made up, or they were all chosen by me to experience.
Yeah, it's a wild experience, isn't it? It's like there's no way you can put words to it, really. You can try, but I love the way you laid that out. It's just like this epiphany of truth that is so self-realized, self-evident, that it's just there, right? And it just is. And it's always interesting to me every time I would go on that journey. We were talking about that earlier, about how I'd always have a bit of a beating heart and go, whoa, because it's such an intense experience, and then be in the field of truth, in that field of knowing, right? Of pure, aware knowing.
Yes.
That field of, and once I was there, I was like, I think to myself, how could I ever be afraid of this, of the truth?
That's right.
And so for me, I got a sense of being in that truth, that degree of truth. What probably a wider scope of what we actually are dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
Like what this density really is, and what we're going through in the human experience, and how closed off we are to our true potential. So I think it really exposed that for me. It really gave me an overview of that separated self condition that we're all living in here,
Isn't it wild how quickly we return to the illusion of separation, having experienced that truth of unity and love, this unconditional, pure love, and then a week or two later, you're back in the game. You're back in the experience.
No kidding. It is crazy. Yeah, it is. It is a wild thing, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. I remember one journey we did with a friend of ours. He is a breathwork facilitator, really great guy. Anyway, he wanted to experience it, and I'll never forget when he went in, how he gave the biggest yes to love, to the universe I've ever heard in my life. It was just yes, and it really is. It was really, for me, it's like, wow, when we open our heart fully, when we just completely surrender and just let the fullness of life come in, like without the heart armor and the busy mind, right? That is always perpetually going. When that mind goes still and the heart goes wide open, you just realize there's an ocean of love, like an ocean of life, right? And you are it. You are all of it. It's just the most incredible experience. So with his yes was so that, right? The ultimate yes. And we were all like just so full of joy watching, just witnessing it, and then it was so interesting when he came back, because he was like going, fuck, F, just out so loud for a while. And we're, he and what was his exact words? He goes, yeah, if you don't mind me swearing, but he said, fuck, I can't believe I did it again. I can't believe I did it again. And he went on like for a while saying this, right? And we're all, of course, waiting like, for what, right? I can't believe it. What is it? And then he finally says, I can't believe I took this place serious again. I can't believe I took this place serious again.
Wow.
Right? Which is just what you're saying, like,
can't believe I fell for the illusion.
Here I am back in it.
Mm-hmm.
And really buying in and into that forgetfulness, right? It's a wild thing.
Do you have any daily or weekly rituals that align you with that remembrance, that take you a little bit out of the game and back into source, so that you always have that connection and that memory of the truth, the love?
Yeah. It's almost now whenever I'm just kind of in it, it's just kind of where I am for the most, it's just kind of where I live, but I'm more aware of what's taking me out. But I do have a practice in the morning that I do before I get out of bed. And I just energetically activate all of my energy centers, my chakras. And I get that rise in vibration happening through that process, and a certain way of breathing. And then I start to replay all of those state moments. So it's the state of what those feelings were. And it helps me to connect back to that state of frequency, and it helps to raise my heart frequency, feeling the love. So all the moments in my life when I've experienced real deep connection or love with people or places or events, I go through that, and I keep activating the heart. And once I get the heart to a certain frequency, then I start going deeper in and connecting to those moments of deep truth, the realization of truth, or that deep peace. And I just let myself dissolve in and sink in and connect to it. And I usually will come to a place where I will feel like some causeless joy, that feeling of causeless joy. And it's really cool. Like at some point, for me anyway, it's like I will see, there's certain scenes that I'll see that for me bring in a real depth of peace, like a calm, still lake. Sometimes I hear Indian music, like I'm on the Ganges, maybe it was another life, and I see the light of the sun on the river, and I hear the music, and everything is just still and amazing. There's a kind of clarity there, and it just brings me this clarity and this peace in my heart. And it's just like, okay, I'm here now. I'm here now. And then I go out into my day. So that's a practice for me every morning.
How do you find your relationship with life has changed over the years? You're in your 60s now. How is it different than your 50s or your 40s? And how have you had to navigate your relationship with life, with reality itself?
Right. Those are great questions, James. I think I'm becoming more myself now, like a sense of who I am here, and a connection I didn't have before, and yeah, oh man, I'm just learning so much. I mean, being in relationship with Kath has been amazing, and she's on the same path. So we've really been walking and exploring this whole journey together in such a profound way that it's almost like we're together returning to innocence. It's like we're returning to innocence. And it's such a wild experience to do together. I'm so grateful for that. And it's like we've healed a lot of the early woundings, in especially the sexual arena, or, what that means about who we are or how we experienced it, and returning to this place of, that's really cool. It's like we're teenagers, and there's none of the weird stuff going on. We're just really here experiencing the magic and the wonder of what it means to connect on that kind of intimate level and be here in that way. And I think landing in that place of stillness or silence or presence, as Eckhart Tolle would call it, in the presence of the now moment, I'm able to discern more when thoughts are trying to take me out of the moment, and old conditioning is starting to try to come back in, and I'm much more aware of it now. So I'm not reacting so much anymore like I used to. I'm able to respond more in the moment to what's here, and just really be more present with just what's happening here in the moment, rather than playing this whole dialogue in my head, about what's the appropriate response, or thinking about the future or the past, or it's a much more present experience. Yeah.
What is most alive for you now in your life? What are you studying? What are you thinking about these days? What mysteries of reality are you exploring?
Wow. It's we were talking about this earlier, actually, about what a wild trip awakening is, and how it's really not like I thought it was going to be in a lot of ways. And how intense it can be. Just being present, how intense it can be. So for me, it's almost like this huge adventure of just being present here. And there's all these projects, and things that I'm really excited about. Kathie and I are we're putting together a cacao journey guide, and then a whole process called the anahata is something we do with cacao and breath and energy. I think I talked about that last time, and we're going to do a guide program with that. We're pretty excited about bringing that out to people. Starting our own show, The Everyday Mystic, and just talking about practical mysticism, ways that we can all use and to expand our consciousness, and practical mysticism for the everyday mystic is what we call it. But really, being here now is enough. It's just like such a journey to be here present in the unraveling of all of the ego mind and the conditioning, and being fully present is a wild ride and a wild experience, and sometimes it's been so intense. I'm really glad Cass on this journey with me, because it has been really intense. There's been a few times where I'm quite a cosmonaut, right? And I was finding times when I'm like, I've had enough, just saying to the divine, I'm just going to back off a minute here because this is super intense. Like being that present, like on Bufo, right? Being that present here now in this human experience, in the intensity of that frequency of light and life, just the ecstatic experience of being that present here is really a wild experience. And yeah, we were talking about this too. Some of the listeners might relate to this, but of course, it's just my own experience, right? But I found that it's really strange to not have that tracking system in place, where, you're always I'm thinking of, what am I going to do tomorrow? What's my plans? Where, what people said, what that meant to mean, on and on and on, that whole dialogue, when it's not there and it's just quiet. It's quite a wild kind of experience, not tracking anything. And I think we talked about this, where when I've done liquid diets for a long time and I'm not chewing on anything, after a while, I want to chew on something. I want to chew, right? And my teeth just, I miss it, right? And it was kind of like that. It's kind of like that, where I wasn't realizing how much my mind was chewing on and tracking, constantly tracking, past, future, present, constant tracking. And as a way of an identity, a way of figuring out what my next step is going to be, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, and not having that the same way.
When did that happen?
Really wild. About a couple of years ago, where it's become more of a lived experience. So, and it was in the beginning, it was really a little bit frustrating in the sense of being in that momentarily, that kind of experience, and just going, wow, everything makes sense. Everything's clear. Everything is just self-evident, in this moment. There's nothing to really do or think about. Everything's happening automatically. But it's so weird to feel there's no one here doing anything, but everything's being done, And it's so weird to just be that moment present, that there's no thinking, really, a lot of thinking going on, really, And so in the beginning, about 2 years ago, we'd have moments, Kath and I, where we'd be in that kind of a space. And then the next thing we know, we're back in 3D, right? Like in the forgetting. But the difference was, even though it was frustrating, it was kind of like, oh man, I just want to really stay there. Now we're back in this. It was a little frustrating in the beginning. And then I started to kind of appreciate it after a while, going, okay, it was a little wild because there was no buffer on any of the feelings. And it was like going full in. And the beautiful part about it was, most of the time anyway, was like I was experiencing it so fully that it kind of completed itself. And it kind of blew me away that how intense it was, with no kind of ceiling on it or no buffer, and just being fully in it and experiencing it at the same time, very aware of what was happening from a more expanded view of awareness. At the same time, it's all happening, and going through this. So that was quite an experience. That went back and forth quite a bit for a while. And then I noticed, we were staying more in the now moment than in the time-bound moment, if you could call it. Yeah.
How can we stay more in the present moment for anyone listening who wants to develop greater presence and not have the mind be chewing on something all the time.
Right.
What is a practice they can start to incorporate?
Right. I think breath is always the biggest one, isn't it? For me, anyway. And for a lot of others, the moment I am aware of a breath and following it fully through the body, and the sensation of the breath moving through the body, the energy and sensation of that breath, it just slows the mind. It slows the mind, calms it down, and gives a moment of, I call it the gap between thoughts, or that moment of, you can sense a stillness for a moment that between thoughts that gives like this gap of a space that opens, and then allowing myself to go more deeply into that space, and allow it starts to open itself up and show so much of what's beyond thinking, what's possible, right? And so so for me, the breath is a real powerful way for people just to become very aware and allow that gap or that space to open, and it kind of starts to show the way. That space starts to show the way. All the information we need is there. And it's like what you notice, you'll get more of what you notice. So it's training our attention and our intention to start focusing on what's beyond thought, what's beyond just the body experience, and allowing a melting in or a dissolving into that space. So to me, that's one of the probably most effective ways to get into the moment.
Focus on the breath.
Focus on your breath.
Do you think we are all, each individual on the planet, is in a process of awakening? And is it a process that's being accelerated? And what can we individually do to accelerate our own awakening?
Yeah, definitely there's a huge awakening going on right now, for sure. I've been interested on the path since I was like 17, right? And I remember at one time I'd say yoga, and people go, what does that mean? What's the word yoga? Small town, right? And trying to do any real work was like molasses, And although things are coming up right now, we're seeing a lot of corruption, and there's a lot of, unfortunately, war and a lot of crazy things going on, which are quite heartbreaking, right? But at the same time, there's an incredible amount of awakening going on that I'm seeing between people, conversations that were never there before, people I work with that are what I would call popping off, or they're waking up and seeing a whole new reality, which is really cool. And just to realize that all this is necessary. It's kind of like when you do a detox, right? And you are detoxing all of the chemicals and harmful toxins out of your body, and you're not feeling good. You're feeling crappy, lousy, but you're getting it out of the system, and you're going to feel way better on the other side. I think humanity's going through a massive detox right now of the collective consciousness itself. And it's necessary for us to see and learn and understand, right, what's been happening before we can let it go, in a way, or to fully realize it, so it just dissolves and it's alchemized, and you're just like here, right? So I think that's what collectively is going on right now. A lot of, and it's exponential too, because we have no idea really of the morphic field that's being created every time a person is starting to awake into a higher dimension of consciousness, right? It's a ripple effect on the quantum field. It's going out and affecting the whole planetary consciousness in amazing ways, right? So that is also happening, as well as a lot of energies coming from the cosmos and the sun solar energies and all of the rest of it. Of course, if people are following the planetary consciousness, and we talked about this before, it's amazing that every mystical tradition, every indigenous wisdom is pointing, right? Was pointing to this time we're in now, like over 6,000 years ago, all of them to this time we're in. So 2012 was the melodic resonance, where we started to come into a whole new resonant field of awareness and consciousness in 2012. And we're deep in it now. Apparently 2027 will be when the collective consciousness itself starts to get a sense of itself in 2027. So there's a lot of shaking up that's going on in the collective right now, for sure.
What's been the biggest lesson you've learned in the last year?
In the last year? Oh, wow. Probably not to take myself so seriously. Let's get back to our buddy. I can't believe I took it serious again. Yeah, I think that's the bigger, I'm starting to have more fun. I'm starting to enjoy myself more, taking things less serious, like, because the self that was there, kind of the personality self that was taking it personally, is no longer as active anymore in the same way. So it's allowing me to be here more and let this moment show me what's here, and let this moment inform the next one. So it's freeing me up to have more fun, to enjoy myself more, and be more in the mystery. And it's more like, hey, wonder what's going to happen today, or even like some days can seem like an eternity, right? and they do themselves. Kathie and I'll often talk about that. My God, I wasn't there. The day just happened, and it was an amazing day. And it's kind of funny in a sense that sometimes we can't even remember minutes ago what we were talking about, and we're just here now. So yeah, I think it's that, taking things less personally and serious, and being more present to connecting and being here.
I love that. It's a lesson that it's so potent for everyone. Do you think it just happens naturally with maturity and wisdom that you get to that place of not taking yourself so seriously?
I think so for a lot of people, but not necessarily everyone, right? Like, you can see a lot of people that take this place seriously right to their last breath, and I've seen younger people that are just so tuned in. I'm blown away actually how tuned in they are, and that's really encouraging too, to see how many awakened beings are coming in now. And it's like a whole different paradigm. And for, as you know, right, we've lived with younger people for quite a few years right now. So I don't really think of myself in my 60s. I really don't. I'm not, it's like young at heart, right? Because we're always having these amazing conversations, and full of life and new possibilities, and talking about all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's pretty vibrant and alive, kind of way of being, really.
I love how you've maintained your energy, your youthfulness, your ability to laugh at yourself, because so many people, as they grow older, they get more serious, or they get more dissatisfied with life. But you're the opposite. I see this joy coming through you. What would you say to someone who is worried about aging? How can they have fun with it? How can they have, or not even think of it in that way at all, but reframe it completely?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very shamanic journey, isn't it? It's the fear of death rules our life, and I think as you know, people get older, if you haven't had that experience of what we are beyond the body in time and space, it's you have a whole different experience of life from that place. It's time bound thinking, like I'm bought into the paradigm of aging and who I'm supposed to be at this age and what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's very ossified kind of thinking in a way. And it's interesting as an energy worker, I've noticed that more people are identified with their thinking, with the left brain. The more ossified their belief system becomes, the more rigid it becomes, the more rigid their body is. It's like the body really tightens up and constricts and contracts and ages. It loses its fluidity and its suppleness and its movement. Becomes a lot more. I just see it a lot. There's a lot of pain and all that kind of stuff that comes with it, lack of movement, things like that. So I think, for people to really appreciate life in the moment, it is a journey of facing your own death and realizing that, we're more than this, beyond this, which I think would then free people up to be here in a different kind of way. But having said that, I was just talking to a really cool guy. He's actually closer to my age, the other day about how he was going through hospice care with his grandmother, or his mother-in-law. And he would go through the ward, and a lot of people weren't having anyone visit them or anything like that. It was pretty sad, actually. But he would sit with them and talk with them and say, "What do you think's the purpose of life? Like, what are you going through right now?" And pretty much most of them were saying, in the end, what really matters is, love received, love giving. Did I make a difference? Was I here for my life? Was I here? Or was I living my life for others?
Oh, wow. Was I here?
Was I actually here, right? Experiencing it, being with life itself in the moment. And if we're ossified in our if we're connected to thinking, right? And thinking is all that we are, because I'm like, well, I'm this guy, Paul, in time and space. I'm probably going to live to this age. I should be doing this and that. This is my story. These are all my regrets and, my failures, my successes, all of it, the story of Paul, the story of me, and the story of me is a limited story to time and space. But the eternal I that is here now, that never dies and was never born, is not having that same kind of relationship with time. So it's like the time doesn't exist. We're going into more of a timeless state, which is our true nature, right? Our true eternal nature. So I think people, maybe if they hear that and realize, I think for those who are on a spiritual path, a big epiphany, or I would say a point of a rite of passage, is And it just seems necessary to do this. It's not wrong or right or good or bad or anything like that. But it's like we need to exhaust ourselves in the outward world looking for who am I, what's going to make me happy, who's going to make me happy, and all that kind of stuff. And I did that in spades. And I achieved a lot of what I wanted to achieve. And then I went through this kind of existential crisis because once I had it all, I was still like not happy. And it really messed me up because I thought, holy shit, because I'm a very goal-oriented person, right? And I did achieve a lot of what I wanted. And I was there and I was like, man, I'm more miserable than ever now, because now what? Because I was told all this would be what would make me happy. And here I am, right? I've got all these things and I'm miserable. I just I actually crashed and burned after that. It was a good thing. It was all part of my journey, but it was something I needed to do. So I think for those people who are aware of themselves enough to realize that nothing outside of you is going to make you happy. Nothing outside of me made me happy. So then it becomes a green light in instead of a green light out, looking for happiness out here. It's like, okay, it really is an inner journey to who we already are now and always have been, when we're not all those things, like the return to childhood, back to that innocence, back to that wonder, back to that present moment awareness, that connection to life in everything. It's a return to that.
I'm still thinking about was I really here? And also how your friend said, or was I living for others? What is it about others' opinion that traps us or makes us conform to what we think others' expectations of us should be? And have you found ways in your life to drop other people's expectations and just be yourself?
That's a big one, isn't it? Because we're dealing with so many fears: fear of rejection, right? Fear of abandonment, fear of being humiliated, ridiculed, not belonging. It goes on and on and on, all the fears, right? That we all live with, right? And I think it all comes with enculturation. It comes from our early conditioning, when the family we're raised in, what we're told. We're taught in school how to compete with each other, how to be, how to fit in. Our individuated selves were not even like on the table. It was like, you got to do this, you got to do that in order to be happy. And, it's natural for us to want our parents to love us, right? To want them to be proud of us, or, and so we want to please them. We learn from the other kids we're playing with, as to how to be and interact. And we get put into this education system of competition. And am I measuring up? Am I measuring up? And so we're basically taught to be who we're not, right? And who we are has to go underground. So I think for all of us, it's like a lot of us anyway, and some have had the fortune not to have that journey. But if I'm being myself, and then all of a sudden someone has an adverse reaction to that, and I take it personally, usually I'm going to shut a part of myself down. And that happens more and more and more, and more of me got shut down over time, to the point where I didn't even recognize myself. I'm just a total chameleon almost,
right,
trying to fit in,
right,
and then feeling super isolated, lonely, lost, disconnected, because I'm being something I'm not, to fit in, to please others instead of being myself. And this is the problem, I think, with our society. We're not being seen for who we are in our soul essence. We all come in here with a soul essence that is unique to each of us. And when we can experience that, there's an essence of the gene keys. For those who are not familiar, can go to genekeys.com. It's kind of a codex of consciousness. And they talk a lot about what it means to live our gift frequency here in service to others. And it's beautiful because Richard would say, and I agree with him, when we get more of a deeper sense of who we are, we'll also naturally know our gifts and who we uniquely are, that really no one else can be. And when we're in the gift frequency, which is altruistic, it's in service to others, the gift frequency. And Richard would say it would be us remembering who we are, living our gift frequency, that is actually what's going to change this planet. It's going to raise the frequency so high that we are here expressing creatively our own individuation, right? And to see we're all one unified field, one connection of wholeness, and yet uniquely individual at the same time, that adds to, not takes away from, to the whole experience. So competition's out the window. We're much more fulfilled, so I don't need to consume so much and, look outside of myself to be content or just to be here in the moment. As the old Confucian would say, North Americans do not know how to sit in a room with nothing and be content. So it's this outward seeking all the time. So yeah, that's maybe a long thing, but
that's why I think psychedelics can be so powerful, because you get to sit alone in a room by yourself and just look at yourself and all the layers of ego, of self. You once told me we are most addicted to self. And I'm curious if you could expand on that, because I found that so fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Well, in Advaita or non-dualism, they call it the I virus. And so, again, going back to we start innocent and we are pure and we are who we are, right? And then we're enculturated into being a self. Oh, now I have to be a self. My name is Paul. This is my history. This is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what everybody's telling me. That's my toy, my this, my that. And it seems normal to fabricate this self, this personification of a self. And it becomes its own energy, its own being. They would call it ego consciousness. The context of concepts that are all mental, right? They're nothing to do with who I am. So I'm creating a self, and this self is pseudo in the sense that it's highly fragile, it's highly vulnerable, it's highly changeable to whatever's going around. There's not much sense of a solid self that will not be compromised in a moment for anything, right? It's always looking, seeking, becoming, wanting to become and be better and bigger and faster and all that kind of stuff, right? So we develop this self personification that can be wounded easily, and gives us a sense of a separation from me and you. So I'm this self and you're that self. And, all of a sudden there's this gap between us that's been created in separation consciousness, and you don't even realize that it's now I'm alone. Now I'm in my own world, and you're in your world, and that connection is lost. That sense of communion, or just that sense of oneness that we have with each other is just gone. And I think we were talking about this whole sense of self earlier, and around. I'm a member of. I belong to the AA club, right? So about 33 years sober now. But I think we were talking about, there's a guy on YouTube, Paul, that he's got into Advaita. He's a Course in Miracles guy. And he is also in the program for like 35 years of AA, right? And he's really got a cool way of looking at this. For me anyway, it really spoke to me going through that program, and maybe any of the listeners that can identify with this too, that may be in the program of AA or 12 steps. And you don't have to be in that program to get it, but it's like the third step prayer is, God, relieve me of this bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Right? I give myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of this bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with thy love, thy power, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. And it talks about how we're driven by this self, this sense of self, this self-delusion, self-seeking. Today they would call it narcissism, right? And they're talking a lot about narcissism out there. Narcissistic behavior is a self-will run riot, and believing I am a self, and this self has taken me over completely. So it's interesting because in the addiction, I think everyone can relate to this. We're all addicted to something. I think, like Eckhart Tolle would say, we're most addicted to thinking. We're all addicted to thinking, because the thinking is, I'm myself thinking these thoughts, right? They're my thoughts. They're coming from me as me, and not realizing that these thoughts are just like thoughts in a thought sphere, like an atmosphere. They're just flowing through. They're not, there's no thinker here thinking them. There's nobody doing anything here. It's just thought is happening automatically, right? And so in the program, the first stage of recovery, which was really wild for me, was I am powerless over alcohol and my life has become unmanageable. And I came to believe that a power greater than me could return me to sanity. And in that, I made a decision to turn my life and will over to a power greater than me. Within that process of being completely beaten down by trying to control alcohol and drugs in my life, and this is pretty much how everyone goes at some point that comes in the program anyway. It's like you realize there's no way I can control this. I've tried everything. I am truly powerless. And if I look at how unmanageable my life has become, I am insane. I'm doing insane things by going into this kind of behavior. And it takes that humility, that humbleness of just being beaten up so bad that there's nothing left in you to fight. And it's a surrender, right? There's a giving up to a power greater than me. And so in the program, a lot of people can relate to this because it was grace that took it out of me. So stage one recovery is like grace took out of me what I couldn't do for myself. So all of a sudden, there's this incredible spiritual experience, this connection to something greater than me that through this grace has relieved me of this insanity of this addiction. And that's really the first stage of recovery. And then as we work the steps, second stage is emotional maturity or emotional recovery. And then the third step is, the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, is really the selfless self. So what Paul is saying, if you can take that whole concept of being a self and realizing how unmanageable it's made our lives, how insane we have become in it, there's a willingness to turn over this self-belief in a self for something greater, something that is my true big self, my true nature, to literally see that it doesn't deliver that outward search, right? It doesn't deliver. And it's then I think that we're ready to let it go and really understand what we're up against. This has been around a long time, and it's going to take a lot of us just opening and desiring it to allow grace to come in and do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves, to understand the depth of how this has got in the way of our living life, of being here in love. Yeah.
But how do we live in the 3D world where it seems required to have a self?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? How do we balance the self in the everyday life? Well, I think by realizing on a deeper level, it's not who we are. We can hold it lighter.
Loosen the grip.
We can loosen the grip on it. Not let it control us so much. Start listening more to what my body's saying to me. The intelligence of the body. We call it the innate healer. That healing intelligence, that source of life that is in control of the heartbeat, the breath, the whole system, that's beyond anything we can imagine. And yet we don't seem to tap into that trust and knowledge of that versus the head. So it's learning, I think, how to trust the heart more and the body more and the intuition more to show us the way and to connect us more to everyday life. Yeah.
The truth, the ultimate truth is that there is no self. Is that correct?
Yeah. The ultimate truth is there is no actual personality, no conceptual, I would call it the conceptual self, that it's just made up. It's enculturated. It's taught to us. It's, again, it's that I, me, the meing instead of the being, right? I'm meing instead of being. And this meing is just what I've been taught and who I think I am, which has nothing to do with who I really am.
And so when we take something like DMT or Bufo, maybe what's happening there is the complete dissolution of the illusion of self.
Yeah, like for instance, LSD, right? Apparently what it does is it there's so much information coming through in such a short amount of time that it literally stops the mind. Stops the mind. And the mind is the conceptual self. It's all mind-made.
The chattering,
right? It's all mind-made. When that stops, when that thinking stops for a moment, we get an experience who we are beyond thought, who we are beyond time and space even.
The infinite self.
The infinite self.
Yeah.
We get a moment of connecting into that and just going, wow, this is who and what I am when I'm not that, right? So medicines are, different medicines, especially DMT, amino 5, it stops the chemicals that keep this all in place. So we get to experience who and what we are when we're not in time and space, or we're not thought. Because it's a wild thing. We've identified thought as who I am. I'm thinking, therefore I am. And it's actually the other way around. I'm thinking, therefore I'm not. Right? Because thinking is just thinking. It's all a construct. It's keeping me out of this moment of now. It's not possible for me to experience anything directly if I'm thinking about it, objectifying it, analyzing it, right? Which is what we're taught to do. Objectify things, analyze them, and then we discard it. Oh yeah, I know what a tree is. I know what I know what that object is. So we stop connecting. We stop having an experience to things.
I've had this exact experience on mushrooms.
Right.
There was a moment in Bali. I was tripping on mushrooms in my room, and I just felt the need to go outside. And fortunately, I was close to the beach, and I rode to the beach, and I'm sitting on these stone steps overlooking the ocean. And it feels like I'm seeing the waves for the very first time in my life. Not the story of the waves, or the label ocean, or the label, hey, here's some waves crashing against the shore, but the actual experience of the atoms of the waves, of the molecules of the water, the wispy mist coming off of the crest of the wave. I was seeing it in so much detail, but also not painting a story with words over it. Mm-hmm. And it felt like this filter was completely removed. And then I went walking in the sand, and the same sort of experience, my feet touching the sand, but not the story of, oh, here's some sand, big deal, but every single particle of the sand, and how glorious it is, and how beautiful it is, and how it molds around your feet with every step. It's just this childlike innocence of experiencing something for the first time ever. I was mind blown by that. And that was just a little bit of shrooms and the way they just remove the stories. And I'm saying to myself, wow, am I seeing the world purely in stories? Here's a bed, here's a desk, here's that person. And then when you remove that, you're just present and you're just getting the raw data. And it doesn't have to mean something preconceived already that you've put a little slot in your brain for it to go to.
That's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. There's no destination. There's no destination, right? You're just here now with what is. And it's amazing. See, to me, this is life in all its fullness. This is that exactly what you just shared. That's it right there. It's being present for what is, without conceptualization or labeling.
The judgments,
the thinking, you're just here, you're present with what is. It gives we can connect from the heart. We can sense life from our heart instead of our head. And the heart is highly intuitive and intelligent, right? And we're having another whole dimension on, it seems like, of experience of what's here.
When it comes to the self, what do you think of self-concept or self-image? This is something Bob Proctor talks a lot about, and Neville Goddard, one of our favorite authors. The idea that your self-image creates your reality. So to the degree that you feel worthy or secure or abundant or confident, to that degree you attract your reality or create your reality. How has your journey been with your self-concept and your self-image, and how can we help the listener to improve their self-image, improve their self-worth, their self-esteem? Because it's such a crucial part of how one navigates life.
Yeah.
And I think you're especially great to talk about this because you have a very secure self-concept. There's a sense of groundedness in you that I feel, and I've not met you, 10 or 20 years ago, so I don't know how you were then. But as I see you today and as I've known you, there's this really secure self-worth that I notice. And so I'd love if you could speak on how your journey has been with that and what you could recommend to others.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating one, isn't it? Because I was a big part of the empowerment movement. I was a facilitator. I took one of Tony Robbins' first courses here in Vancouver. Yeah, it was actually a cassette course on how to, just how to improve your self-confidence, your self-worth. By doing esteemable things, you feel better. By taking actions, you feel better. By disciplining yourself, you feel better, and all that kind of stuff. And I went that route, and I think, it definitely has its place, right? It has its place. But what I found was I learned a lot of techniques in, I did a lot of courses and I taught a lot of stuff. And learned kind of how to be, it was almost like get on the field of life as a football player, and I'm pushing myself beyond using all these techniques and NLP and, visualizations. And I did a lot of that stuff. And, I could perform. I could really perform. And it did really help me in many ways to improve my life. But at the end of the day, I was still a self, always trying to become something more and improve myself. I saw myself as always lacking. There's something wrong with me. I'm not enough. So I was always doing, and yet it was never enough. It was like, it didn't matter how much I did. I couldn't, at the end of the day, I still felt terrible. And I realized at that point in my life, once again, I come to that point where it achieved a lot. I really did crash and burn because I didn't realize that my wounded self was what was driving my life. Right. And it's based on not enough, always needing to be more. Scarcity, lack, competition. And that is the really reality of a self, the little self, the personified self. So, I just came to a place where I just crashed and burned. And I realized that that was happening for me. And my low self-worth was part of that, which was sabotaging my life, from this not enough place. I'm not lovable. I'm not enough, which I think is just naturally goes with a personified self, a self-made self, because I'm not being myself. Right. And therefore I don't like myself. I know I'm lying to myself somehow. I'm not being myself. And all the feelings that come with that. It's a very challenging place to be. And yet it seems on the spiritual path, it's what's required is in transpersonal counseling or psychotherapy. They'll say, I need to get a sense of myself in my highest potential here in order to come to these realizations and let it go. Because if I'm letting go of something that I haven't really embodied and experienced, it becomes a kind of a mental trip, spiritual two-step. I'm letting go of something that I haven't really embodied yet. I haven't really explored and fully stepped into. So I think it's a necessary part to live into that, to eventually see that it isn't ultimately who we are, who I am, and to allow it to go in order for who I really am to now be here in my life.
So is self-worth an illusionary concept to you because we're all inherently worthy, or how do you think of it today?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think self-worth, it's all based on a personality, right? And my self-worth is dependent on how I feel I'm doing. Am I good? Am I good looking? Have I made enough money? Am I a good conversationalist? Do I have a good job? So it's all based on externals, as far as how I'm going to feel about myself is going to be around the externals of how I'm doing in my life. If any of that goes south, then my self-esteem goes south, because I've tied it into what I do and not who I am.
So is there a way to base it purely on the internal?
Yeah, I think when we realize that there's nothing out there that's really going to ever do it for me, that's going to make me happy, and none of this is who I really am, then there's a willingness to explore and find out who I actually really am. But it's letting go of that whole construct to connect into, and it's like anyone, I think, that connects into their inner essence. Like, I know the times that I've really connected into an authentic kind of sense of myself, that it's like I've landed in myself and I feel solid. Like I can feel my feet in who I am. And there's this incredible elation that comes up. And I feel from that place like anything's possible in my life. And the depression just lifts. And it's like, this is who I am. It's like landing on the moon to come into that sense of solid self, that authentic self that we all are. And I think that one moment of touching into that, one moment of like your mushroom experience, one moment of being. So when we have a moment of being, it has nothing to do with what we're doing, right? And so we can let go of all the judgment of, am I enough? How am I doing? Who did what to me, or who is doing what? Like all of that just goes. And there's just you in this moment and this sense of connection and the beauty of what's around you without thought interfering with your experience of what's here.
Mm. Beautifully put. Do you have a meditation practice? Or are you meditating all the time?
Yeah. It's funny, the practice of meditation, it's like really life is a living meditation, right? We're living life in every moment, right? It's just how present am I to this moment would be the meditation, I guess. And I had definitely meditation brought me into some incredible experiences and into a very now moment of connecting to that inner essence and going, wow, oh my God, this body is it's a shell. It's a vehicle for my soul essence, for this awareness of expanded consciousness that I truly am. And touching down into that experience, which happened through meditation for me, it did happen. That changed everything. That was a complete game changer, because then it allowed me to go deeper into exploring that inner region, that inner sensorium adventure of going inward and finding out what an incredible state we're all actually living in truth, and how expansive that was. And so for me, it was like, yeah, that changed everything for me in my relationship to everything around me. So yeah, meditation, it has its uses, but really, just being here in this moment is all that's really required. Anytime I take a conscious breath, just for a moment, I'm putting myself into a now state. So anything, touch, senses, music, art, nature, like whatever we can connect to that will bring us into this now moment experience, right, is a beautiful thing to do. So I look at it more as just being present with what is. I think it's the greatest meditation, rather than going, oh, I'm going to meditate now, versus, no, I'm going to be here now. So to be here now, I can come fully into my senses, be still, breathe, feel my breath, and come into that deeper place of connection till it becomes just a place we live from all the time.
Where is the edge in your personal growth now? What are you currently expanding into? Where is the challenge for you at the moment?
I think we were talking about this, where this present moment awareness, this place of consciousness, watching how thought wants to take me out, being very aware of that self-programming that wants to come in and have a say on things, is the kind of the experience I'm having more and more of. It's so subtle. It's so subtle watching how it can come in the back door, and just allowing myself really to be. Kathie has this great saying we shared with you the other day, flow with the go, right? Instead of go with the flow, right? It's when it's like realizing that all there is really, and it sounds trite because, we've all heard it a million times, right? But flowing with the go is trusting life, trusting love, trusting source, knowing in your heart and soul that the universe is friendly. And it is, I think Neville would say that, conspiring for your highest good, right? In every moment. That we can lean into life and let life have us. Let ourselves be life experiencing and expressing itself. So for me, it's leaning into that place where I'm not, And this is the crazy thing about this whole awakening process. And this was something I was definitely on and can really relate to. When I was on the other side, I was always thinking, I'm going to become an awakened being, right? I'm going to be enlightened. I want to be, but it was always an I that was going to be enlightened, or an I that was going to be aware. And little did I know that I isn't going to be there for it. The self is not going to be there for it, because it's the selfless self that's non-duality, right? When there's no self, there's only self, the big self, or our true nature, right? What adds no self is here now, experiencing life and leaning into it. So I would say for me, it's leaning more into a much deeper trust in this moment and life, that everything is happening automatically without me doing anything. And that allows me to be a conduit for life source energy to come through me, in me, as me, through me, that I'm just this vehicle for life source energy, for life to flow through and express, right? And I get to experience my true self in that process of being of being myself being shown to me in a way, my soul essence, my note, right? My song is being played and heard by source energy through me, as me. And I'm experiencing me. I'm experiencing my note in that celestial choir, let's say, I'm being played. And it's like, wow, to hear your note is what the best ever. You know, our note, not someone else's note, but your note, right? It's kind of like Krishna's flute, right? The story of Krishna's flute, where we all live in a certain environment, as a tree does, in a certain country and in a certain, weather pattern, right? And so the wood creates itself a certain way. And within that wood, you'll find a piece within the tree to carve out your flute, right? So that will be like us. We're very unique, right? And so you get the wood for the flute. Then what do? You hollow out the wood. Now then you place the holes, and then the depth of the hole and the resonance of the wood. And once that process is done, like we get hollowed out, all of this self is like a hollowing out. And we're all structured a certain way, right? Like a flute. And it's the spirit of life that can come through that flute that is us, hollowed out. And we're being played by life. We're being played by God, right? And we're experiencing the sound
and the joy
and the joy of our true expression, our note being played.
Yes.
Right?
So many people are trying to play the universe, but you're saying allow the universe to play you. How can we do that? How do we surrender and allow ourselves to be played by God?
It really, for me, it always comes back to the breath. In breath work, if people have done breath work out there, you get to a point sometimes where we call it the breathless breath, where breath is breathing you. And in that moment, it's so easy. It's so incredibly easy because you're not doing anything. You're just letting it happen. Right? And that breath just takes you over. And all of a sudden, the sense of a self leaves. And I am being breath breathing itself. And what an amazing experience that is, to be breathed. And then I'm more like allowing an inner surrender to happen through my breath, to allow life to inform me, to move through me, to become aware of what's around me, right? So I think it comes back to that, to the breath, to the awareness of the moment, to an inner surrender to what is. Now, when we come into that inner surrender, it means, can I embrace all the feelings that I have? Can I allow, without resistance, what's here now? So I would say that is an incredibly powerful way for people to come into the moment, is to notice where you're resisting, where you're pushing, where we're repressing emotions, where we're allowing compulsive thinking to take us over, and find that sweet spot in ourselves where we can just be with our feelings, to be with thought flowing through, to be with the feelings, to allow what is here to express itself, to move through me, to flow through me without withholding or controlling, just allowing it to be. And any thoughts of judgment on it, just letting them go, right? Just letting those thoughts go and just be in that center, what they call it, the eye of the storm, right? To be in the center of centers, to be in that place that can experience everything, feel everything, and allow everything to move through without resistance. And be so into the moment with myself that I can find that I can change the relationship with myself in that moment. So this is I think actually really key too, is finding compassion and kindness for myself in my experiences, and just be my own best friend, to allow myself to feel what I need to feel, to just not get caught up in thought controlling me to such a degree that it's taking me out. I can allow it to move like just clouds across the horizon. I can feel what I need to feel and honor whatever's happening, in my life in this now moment, right? I think that's huge. Like just being more surrendered to what is, allowing what is without so much of the mental categorizing and the conceptualizing, judging, all of that.
I always find it interesting that resistance in a psychedelic trip creates a bad trip, but the same is true of life. When we resist emotions, people, events, circumstances, we're not allowing the trip of life to unfold and for us to be played by the universe.
Yeah, do you notice like how much the breath plays in the journey? As you're going into that inner surrender? Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it? How much breath is connected. It's like, our first breath begins our life here, right? It begins with a breath. I'm here, right? I'm breathing. And then it ends with a breath, and the breath is, it's spirit, it's life force energy, it's prana, it's information. So the more breath I take in, the more prana I have access to, which is life force energy. And it's also information, right? They call it chi or prana. It's information as well. And the information is there to help us evolve and live on purpose here and be our full potential here. So it's actually through the breath that we connect to that information field, the quantum field, or you could call it the akasha. We're connecting to a higher realm, a realm of being, or a higher realm of thought for sure, that we normally don't have access to, but we can access through the breath. Yeah, for me on DMT, MEO5, all I do is breathe. It's like I'm the incredible expanding man, and just expanding. And what I noticed was, and this translates into life too, that as my breath changes, my consciousness changes. As my consciousness changes, my breath changes. And I really notice that in medicine journeying. Like I'm just, I'm opening to what feels like a much more expanded consciousness. And it's happening through my breath and surrender. Like I'm just allowing what is happening in this moment to happen. I'm just dissolving into the surrender part, or the pain, or the whatever it is I'm experiencing in that moment. And somehow the breath is modulating it and shifting it and changing it, and expanding into it. And then I'm in this new place, and I feel kind of like a jellyfish in the ocean, maybe going in and out, transparent, almost transparent. You can't even see the jellyfish almost in the ocean, right? And there's just, you're so transparent in this cosmic ocean of love and just being breath itself, just breathing itself in this incredible sense of peace, that comes with that kind of surrender.
Contracting and expanding.
Yeah, we do a thing in Quantum Touch where we teach people to really get in touch with the breath flowing through the body. So you're pulling it up through your feet to your crown, and then you're exhaling through the heart into this place, or exhaling into the body and filling it with vitality and life, and just becoming very aware of the sensations that breath causes, the energy movement that starts to happen through the body, and then realizing that if I modulate and activate my heart center through love, like sensing times and people I really love, can literally raise my frequency of my heart vibration, and that emanates out, and you can connect that to the breath, and then bring that emanation of love with breath and sensation and attention to it as it moves through. And that really helps come into the flow state, right? To flow with the go, what is happening here now, instead of the head, but just being present with what is without resistance, and just allowing it helps me get into that rhythm of life, that rhythm of Gaia, that rhythm of life. Yeah.
Paul, is there anything we haven't touched on that you think would be potent to share?
There was one DMT MU5 journey where it was actually in the basement there, and it was I'd done 2 Jaguar experiences. For those people who don't know, that's encephalating, right? And it's a different kind of experience than smoking, right? But after that second journey, I sat in front of our altar, and I was making an intention to get out of the way and just let life have me, like to live me, to flow through me. And I was kind of going, whoa, this is an intense intention, because I was in such a high state when I made it, right? And then I went into the journey, and it was like I was an octopus holding onto a reef with one sucker. That's my familiar home. That's what I know. That's what I'm familiar with. And the Gulf current was pulling me, which would be like the current of life, was pulling, and I was hanging on with that one sucker. And I was so aware of it, right? It was like, if I let go of that, what's going to happen to me?
Who am I?
Right? Like, where am I? What's going to happen?
Where am I being taken?
Yeah, where am I being taken? And I decided to, through grace, really just to let go. And it was the most incredible experience. It was like, rather than me, Paul, having an experience, it was like I was life experiencing itself. And I was flowing, and the music that was playing was amazing. So I was flowing through the music, feeling the rhythms, being all the people, being the music, being the drumming, being the dancing, being everything that was happening. It was like I was merged as life experiencing itself in complete flow state. And it was the most ecstatic experience of presence, of just pure joy, of just being here in the full flow of life in all its abundance and fullness. And it was like, wow. So if I could put that out there for others in any kind of way, just to allow ourselves, right? Allow yourself to really enjoy what's happening in your life in this moment. Like that gratitude, for being alive, the gratitude for just breathing, walking, feeling, being here, connecting, the opportunity to love and be loved, to really be here for what's here and appreciate it as deeply as possible. The people we love, the interactions we have, like making those connections with people, the cashiers, the people you meet at just, out and about, right? Like really allowing myself to be present, to enjoy whatever's happening in this moment would be my wish for everyone, to really, and just to be here for your life, to just appreciate what is, because the mind will always keep you occupied with what isn't, and there's no life in that. It's just a life of chasing the rabbit, or chasing the dragon, right? Chasing the dragon instead of being here for what's here now.
Be here now. Paul, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. Mm-hmm. We'll have links to your website and your projects in the show notes. And if there's any final words you want to say for the listener on how they can trust life and really surrender, really trust that flow, trust the flowing with the go.
Flow with the go. Well, what blows me away? They got a new number, septillion. Have you ever heard that? It's a number called septillion. It's the number of 7 times the number of the known stars in the galaxy that are the number of chemical processes happening in the body in a second. The intelligence that is here to keep us alive, to keep us living, expanding, and growing, to really lean into that and see if you can trust the intelligence of that to express through you and as you, and inform your life. Let that inform your life instead of the head. Going with the flow. As the Mayans would say, let go of the shore. Right? Remember we were talking about that? In other words, all rivers now, all of us and humanity in this collective awakening, we're all like these separate rivers merging into one ocean of love. And we're coming home to the highest truth of who we are in our unity consciousness. And the Mayans would say, let go of the shore of the known. Right? Allow yourself to make love to the mystery, to say yes to the mystery, to allow the mystery to just surrender into that flow, to that go, and to know that it's for our absolute highest good. And we can trust that 100%. It's got our back. And let it inform our life. Let it show us what's possible. Ride that current, that flow through life, everyday life, and see how that goes.
Beautiful. Paul, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, James. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Yeah, glad to be here.
You've been listening to the James Xander Trip with special guest Paul Scott. Links to his website are in the show notes, and we shall see you in the next episode. Thank you for being a listener.